Hello and welcome to Inside Tennessee Football's practice facility. I'm Ryan Sylvia. This is Noah Taylor, and we are with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network. Once again, get it out of the way. Nico Iamaleava, what is his availability going to be? Josh Heupel said that he anticipates him to play again. Same message as after Saturday. They think he's going to be good to go. Didn't want to give like a complete green light, like he's playing, or obviously a complete thumbs down. He's not playing. It's still kind of middle of the road, and obviously said, hey, you guys can look forward to that injury report on Wednesday that comes out and follow it from there, but kept the door open at least, and said that, I can't remember the exact word he used, but it was something along the lines of anticipates to play, I think he'll be ready to play. So good news, I guess, for now on that front, but we'll have to see how that progresses throughout the week. But let's talk about other things Josh Heupel had to say, starting with you, Noah.
Yeah, I talked about the preparation of this week, going into this game. Obviously, a little bit of experience for some of these guys, and certainly Josh Heupel that were here 2 years ago. This was a game that was for essentially the SEC East, and for a spot in the SEC championship game, a spot in the playoff for Tennessee, and both Georgia going to that, both the AP and college football #1 teams facing off. So things haven't really changed, minus the rankings. This is essentially, I think, an elimination game. You could certainly, the loser could certainly still have a path open, but you certainly have no room for error, and then you got to rely, on everybody else. So there's a lot at stake here. A lot of, this week we're going to be talking about it. A lot of national people are going to be talking about this game and the new 12-team expanded playoff era. But Josh Heupel talked about it today and kind of stuck with the coach speak he said since he got here, and that it was, it's a one-game season. It's this week is the biggest game on your schedule. Now, whether or not they're looking into it more intently than that, we don't know because we're not in the facility, but that's what he's rolling with, and kind of got an interesting perspective from him because he's obviously a guy that played at Oklahoma and was a Heisman finalist, won a national championship. He's played his share of big games too. He's been on that side of it as well, and said that as a player he kind of had the same approach. So, and then the players we talked to today kind of say the same thing. So obviously a lot at stake. We know it, they know it, but they're definitely playing it like another game for them.
To me, this game is an elimination game for Georgia.
Yeah, for sure.
For Tennessee, I'm not sure if it is. I think you'll need some help, but Tennessee's been getting some help.
Yeah.
They've been getting some teams like a Pitt to lose the second games and stuff. So I don't know. I think Tennessee has a good path with a loss. I think it partially depends on the optics of the loss, though.
Yeah.
If you go in Athens, you get blown out. Then, maybe you do need a little bit more help. If you go to Athens and you play a good game, you play things close, and maybe it's even ugly, but that scores, you're in the game in the fourth quarter, then I feel like it's going to be tough for them to leave Tennessee out. So we'll have to see exactly what that looks like. But Tennessee's got a really nice path. To me, what's not only important, obviously if they beat Georgia, they're probably a theoretical lock for the playoffs, assuming that they beat UTEP and then Vanderbilt. You're also playing for an SEC title then.
Yeah,
if you beat Georgia this week in Athens, then all of a sudden you're a win from Vanderbilt away from playing in that SEC championship game, the first time that feels like forever. And that would be, talk about a big step for Josh Heupel in just year 4 to already get into that dance when you add in Texas and Oklahoma too.
Yeah.
It's an even more impressive feat now. No divisions maybe helps a little bit, but kind of hurts you in the same way. So. That would be a big step for me. So, it's a big one. I thought that was interesting, too, though, how Heupel, you really felt like he meant it, too.
Yeah,
because of also every player after that is asked a similar question, and every single one of them is not like, there's a little bit more, every single one of them, same routine, same game plan, go in there and execute. And I think I take that as value. Obviously, from the outside, maybe you get a little bit more juiced up, but in terms of day-to-day preparation, how they're treating it right here in this practice facility, I believe that it is business as usual in that it doesn't matter if it's UTEP or Georgia, they are treating it like it's a big game. But players, what do you think about what they had to say?
Yeah, kind of going a little bit along those same lines, but I thought, it was interesting talking to Dominic Bailey, who's been a key part of that defensive front, and it seems like every week or every other week, these guys are kind of getting asked. And I think it's a little bit of a valid question. How surprised are you about this defense? And I think coming into the year, we knew they'd be good. We knew they had the potential to be good. But at this point, it's just, I think we can safely say they've exceeded expectations. You haven't allowed 20 points yet in the SEC in an era where, offense is, this isn't the 90s. This is an era where just 2 years ago, Tennessee was having to win games, 52-49. And now all of a sudden, your offense hasn't played up to the expectations maybe we had at the beginning of the season. but this defense has been incredibly elite, and it's why Tennessee's in the position they're in. It's why you feel really good about, as opposed to 2 years ago this time when Tennessee was number one in the playoff poll. You feel, I think, feel a little bit better with the way this defense is playing. And obviously there's things, the run game and things like that they've kind of struggled with in the last 2 weeks. But Dominic Bailey asked again, what are you surprised about this? And he said, not really, because, when the guys that were coming back decided to come back, everybody's goal was to be in the position they're in right now. And you're seeing them play that way too. And I think it's a big reason why Tennessee, it seems like we just talked about, essentially playing for a spot in the SEC championship game, potentially more on Saturday against a team that's, kind of been at the top, or definitely been at the top of the SEC for almost a decade now.
Yeah, and this defense, the challenge that's in front of them is an offense, though, that's got a really high ceiling, and we've seen how good they can look. Like, you think about that second half against Alabama, that's of course a loss, but that second half they were rolling, and they've shown that in a few other games. But also it's a defense or an offense for Georgia that's had its struggles, especially recently, and it goes back to Carson Beck, the quarterback, and he hasn't been, I don't think he played the worst game in the world against Ole Miss, but it wasn't to the standard, obviously, to win that road game. And if Tennessee can kind of force him into some of those similar mistakes, force some turnovers, then the defense could really help a Tennessee offense, whether it's Nico or Gaston at quarterback, to kind of get over that hump and take some pressure off of that offense in a road environment that should make things really hard to operate. But you talked to Josh Heupel, I think Will Brooks was the other guy asked about it, and the kind of response on the offense and on Carson Beck is they have a lot of respect for him. I think they're more so looking at the ceiling for him, like the potential that he has and what he's shown in the past that he can do at a high level, and trying to take that away rather than maybe looking at some of the negatives that he's done recently. Of course, you're going to want to try to get those negatives to come out again, but they seem to have respect for him. They seem to have respect for what this offense does in the run game as well, too. Really good running backs for Georgia, but defense will have a big test. But I think, like you said, compared to 2022, it's a completely different team, and they're able to rely on their defense, which is kind of a big deal. Also, Miles Kitselman we talked to today, and his situation is kind of interesting, and just the tight end situation, I guess, because you look at 2 weeks ago against Kentucky, and he's got nearly 100 yards and a touchdown on 8 or 9 catches, and then last week against Mississippi State, he has one grab for I think 8 yards. It was less than 10. So I was curious, is that you go into game day and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be a big part of the offense today, and Tennessee's gonna be using the tight ends, or is it kind of how it unfolds? And he kind of said it was more so how it unfolds. They have specific plans to get the ball to the tight ends during different looks, and it just kind of depends if they get to that. Is that a play call that they need to use? Does that situation arise that they want to use the tight ends? And I guess ultimately it didn't too much on last Saturday, but I think that just having those guys as a threat is a good thing for Tennessee. Having to, even when you're in 12 personnel, it's not just, okay, well, now they're running the ball. They're still comfortable throwing the ball out of that to the receivers, but also the tight ends. And I think Miles Kitselman and Holden Stays have done a really nice job in those sets, in both blocking and pass catching, and also Ethan Davis starting to get involved a little bit more too. So the tight end position for Tennessee, I think it's fair to say a little bit of a slow start to the season at times, but coming on really strong now in a critical moment for Tennessee. That'll do it all for us, though, here today inside Tennessee Football's practice facility. We'll have more content this week coming up for that big Georgia game, and then obviously men's basketball, women's basketball, and everything else Tennessee Athletics over at VolReport.com. Links to everything you need is in the description. Thank you for watching.